Hi there! In today's video, I'm bringing a spooky twist with a Chucky theme fondant tutorial using my Everybody silicone mold. Whether you're prepping for Halloween or just love all things horror, I'll show you how to craft a mini Chucky figure complete with signature details. Let's dive into this creepy cute creation and make your cakes and sweets stand out this spooky season. So as you can see, I filled my everyday silicone mold with fondant in both the head cavity as well as the body cavity. I am going to be filling the body cavity with two different color fondants. You want to use a small tool to push the fondant back so that you make space to receive the second fondant color. Take your time with this process. Remember, you can stop, start, and review this video as often as you need to. You can also fill in both arm cavities for Chucky as well. Once you've completed that, you can unmold your Chucky. I normally flip mine over and allow gravity to allow the fondant to fall out on its own. That way, I avoid disfiguring or marring the fondant during the unmolding process. But do whatever you feel comfortable with doing. This is your project. Once you've done, we're going to go ahead and start working on the little facial features of Chucky. I am using a balling tool to make the eye cavities. You can find all of the tool lists and supply lists attached to this video. I also have a supply list on my Amazon storefront for ease of use in finding items. We're going to continue to work on Chucky's details. I did use my tool to make an indentation for his mouth. Chucky has like a little scar on his forehead, and that's what I'm working on now using that same Dresden tool. Once you've completed those preliminary details in his face, I'm going to start working on the details for his coveralls or his overalls. I'm simply cutting small strips and adding those to the shoulder area of Chucky to mimic straps. You can adhere those with just a little bit of water and a small paintbrush. Again, all tools and supplies can be found on my Amazon storefront, and I'll also try and attach a list of those tools and supplies to this video if you're watching on YouTube. I'm going to continue to make sure that those straps are appropriately sized for Chucky's little body. A lot of times when things are too big or too small, they tend to make your figure look a little bit wonky or out of balance. So make sure to keep everything appropriately sized. Again, we're going to continue to work on the details of his overalls or coveralls. I'm going to be adding a very small amount of red fondant to act as his little buttons right on the straps of his overalls. I normally use my thumb and index finger to roll fondant that's very, very tiny. This may work for you as well. It works great if your hands are not sweaty or wet. You can always use a little cornstarch or some powdered sugar to apply to your fingers prior to doing this process. Again, I'm just using my balling tool to kind of press those little balls out to make them look more like buttons. Here I simply applied Chucky to a fondant backer just because I'm using him almost like a cupcake topper. I like to give them like a little platform to sit on. That way it's easier for me to handle, and it gives the piece a little bit more of an interesting look. I'm using my tool also to add some little creases in his pants so that it looks more realistic as well. I would encourage you to do the same. I used my stitching tool to put a little stitch mark right down the middle of Chucky. Again, this also adds a degree of realism to your piece. I added a little bit of water on the little plate that I applied him to, so that his head would stay attached. I always try to check sizes and placement before I actually glue pieces on to make sure I'm comfortable with the way it's going to look. So we're going to continue to work on his facial features. I'm using a very small piece of white fondant to create the white part of his eyes, and I'm using my balling tool to just kind of position it and make sure it's secured in that eye socket. You can also use my all around mold to ensure that both pieces of your white are the same size. I struggle with that all the time, but my all around mold helps with that, in that it'll allow you to use the exact amount of fondant for both eyes. So give it a try if you're struggling with making both of those eyes the same size. Once we got the white in, we're going to work on the blue part of Chucky's eyes. Again, you want to just roll that into a small ball and use your balling tool to kind of press that portion of the eye into position, making sure that it's rounded and not squared, and that you leave a little bit of white showing around the blue because that too gives it a more realistic appearance. You want to repeat that process for both eyes, doing the white and the blue. That's a little joke. I love fondant, and I hope you do too. So I'm going to work on that second eye, attempting to make sure that both are the same size. I like to use my Atico, that blue palette that you see me sitting him on. It helps me to pick up and handle my pieces without pressing into them, getting them distorted as a result of me handling them. We're going to go ahead and add the black portion of his eye. If you feel rushed, this would be a great time to stop and work a little bit on the eye if you need to. I do tend to use stick pins when dealing with small pieces of fondant because my hands are a little big and sometimes it's harder for me to get the little pieces in their places. You can always use a very small stick pin, or you can also use a cookie scribe to do that as well. I just like to use stick pins because they're so fine. Again, using your balling tool to make sure you get that black part of his eye in position. Again, we're still working on Chucky. I'm just adding, I guess you would call it an eyelid or a brow lid area, just to give him almost like a scowl, because, like he's upset, he's mad about something. So I'm adding that portion to give a little heaviness to his eye. And pay attention to the fact that I'm still using that same Dresden tool from PME. It's a great tool that can be used for a lot of different things. Remember, whatever we do on one side, we have to do on the other. So make sure to take the time out to do that other side. Don't be concerned if they're not identical. Just do the very best that you can. Again, I'm still working on Chucky's eyes. I'm working on his bottom lids because I do want him to have like an angry expression. Eyebrows can tend to be a little bit tricky, and they do add a lot of expression to the face and a lot of emotion. So take your time with the eyebrows, making sure that whatever expression or emotion you're trying to convey, that you're doing that using the eyebrows. And I'm just rolling these into little bitty almost teardrop looking shapes, and applying them right on that brow that I put on previously. So it's almost like a teardrop type of shape that I just roll with my index finger in the palm of my hand. You'll get better at all of this as you practice your fondant figure making. I like to do the little twinkle in their eye. I'm using a balling tool here. You can use the tip of a toothpick, if you'd like as well. Any type of white edible paint works fine. Again, I will leave the name of this paint in a list on my Amazon storefront or in the description attached to this video. A little lower eyelid action. I think this is where I did the lower eyelid. I said I did it earlier, but this is actually where I did it. I think before I put his nose on. Sorry about that. Again, this PME Dresden tool is a lifesaver. And it's inexpensive, and it comes with a lifetime warranty as well. This is probably one of my favorite tools, my go-to tool. Once again, repeating that eyelid process on the other side. We're almost done with eyes and faces and stuff, so bear with me. It's coming along. When did you fall in love with fondant, if you love fondant? And if not, let me know when you do fall in love with fondant. I remember maybe 3 years into my cake and sweets journey, I think I fell in love with fondant, and I never looked back. It's such a great medium, and it allows you to do a lot of things. Here I'm going to just dust a little pink on his cheeks because he is a little dull, and we want to give him a little rosiness to his cheeks. I do use pressed petal dust to do this in a fluffy brush. The brush set I got from Borderlands, and I will again leave information for all of the supplies used in the description. Now we have to do his little Bobo. So I said, oh no, Bobo. So he has like a little cut in his head that he sustained while he was being who he was being. So I did previously put a little space in there, and now I'm just backfilling that space with a little red fondant, making sure I press down into it so it really looks like it's a scar. Like it's a cut, a laceration. I said these shoes are made for walking. We're going to work on his little red shoes. It's very simple. All I did was I rolled my fondant into like a little log. I cut it in half because I wanted them to be the same, about the same thickness and about the same amount of fondant. And then I just rolled them into a ball, pressed one end down flat, and I applied it to the bottom of his little pant leg. Again, if you have issues with having things be the same size, try my all around mold. I think it's called circle around. Actually, I'm calling it all around, but it's actually called circled around. And you can use that to help ensure that you have the same size when you're doing things like eyes or shoes or arms or something that requires you to have the same amount of fondant. The little shoes are adorable. Okay, so next we're going to focus on his hair. Orange hair, don't care. I think this made this for me. I love his hair. I think it came out really, really great. The process of making his hair is twofold. So I originally thought I was going to add each individual piece, but I decided against that. So what I decided to do was roll out some fondant and then cut little triangles into a strip of fondant and use that as the base for his hair. Again, this would be a great time to stop the video, rewatch it, and make sure you get the process, because this is very important. Chucky's hair is one of the, one of his signature characteristics. So you definitely want to get this right. And all I did was added a little water and added that base hair to the side of his head. You'll then see how I then roll little bits of fondant again into that teardrop shape, and I add some little lines into it, and then I add that on top of that base hair piece that I put on Chucky. Again, stop, rewind, rewatch this video, because some aspects of Chucky are so memorable that you're going to want to get those right. But take your time. Take your time. Your Chucky will come along as well. Just take your time. Still working on his hair, because what I did was I made each piece of hair individually and attached it. Again, it's simply rolling a ball into a teardrop shape. One end is fatter than the other. And then I just added some little lines into the hair to give it a little bit more character. Make sure you don't cover his little scar on the top of his head. You want to leave that exposed to add to the character and some of the details. Make sure not to leave any bald spots. And I do take the tips of the hair and kind of flip it up a little bit. And in the process of doing the hair, be careful not to mess up or distort any of the other features that you've already added to Chucky. I did decide to add just a little bit of hair at the bottom of his head, because I felt like something was missing right there. But again, it's a free-for-all. When you make your Chucky, you determine how much hair he does or does not need. You don't have to do exactly what I did. Definitely use, your own creativity and add your own little zhuzh wherever you feel is necessary. But keep the basic premise of Chucky, though. So I'm going to repeat that base hair with those little triangles in that strip. You don't need much. And then attach that again with a little water. That's all you need. And then again, we're going to repeat the process on this side with making the little teardrop shaped pieces of orange hair and individually attaching those to Chucky's head. Add your lines in there if you want to have that, hair feature. If you want it to look more like hair, you want to add those little lines in there. And when I tell you this Dresden tool saves my life and time, I use it for so many things. Definitely a great investment, and it's less than $20. Again, just repeating that hair process until we filled in the bottom part with these individual hair pieces. So love is in the hair. So this top part, I'm going to call it a toupee, because I'm going to make the top portion of his hair out of this one piece of fondant. There is no wrong or right way to do it. The only thing I will say is once you've, cut your little pieces in there, go in with your fingers and kind of make the ends a little pointy. Make it look like hair. I did add a couple of little lines in there too, because I wanted to look like it's his hair. I cut off the tip that was a little rounded because I wanted it to be able to fit over that little wound, that little scar that we put up there. Don't cover that little scar. Using my Dresden tool to press it down and to make sure I position it the way that I want it to be positioned. Make sure you add a little zhuzh to the hair so that it's, kind of curly and it has some movement. That makes all the difference. Heidi ho, ha ha ha. So I used edible markers to actually paint on each individual color in Chucky's shirt and on his sleeves. I would suggest you do that as well. It gives it a very realistic look. It looks more like fabric when you do that. You don't have to be perfect. You don't. Chucky has been through some things. He's been out there terrorizing folks. So even if his little stripes are not all straight or even, I think that adds to the character and to the charm of the piece. So take your time. Again, if you mess this up, it's such a small amount of fondant. You can go back and do your arms again. The good thing about it is you have the mold. It's there for ease of use. It's there so that you can recreate and practice your craft as often as you'd like to. So take your time with these little stripes, and know that I struggled as well. And, it's a process. Stop the video if you need to, rewind it, and watch it again. You got this. If I can do it, you can do it as well. You just have to believe that you can do it. And it's such a cute little topper. I can't wait to see what you create. I did use two different type of markers, and I will leave those in the description as well, and or on my Amazon storefront. Okie dokie. Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play? So at this point, I added his little arm, the one that I completed. Like I said, what I like to do is I definitely like to try and see what they look like before I glue them down, just in case I messed it up or I made it bigger than I want to. Check it first before you glue it down, okay? Again, we're going to repeat the process on the other side. The good thing about making characters like this is they come in twos. Two eyes, two ears, two arms, two feet. So you get to practice it more than once. And I guarantee you that second one tends to come out a little bit better than the first one because you know what to do. You know how the fondant is going to react and everything. So I'm going to go ahead and attach that second arm to his body. He's looking so cute. Okay, one of Chucky's famous sayings is you just can't keep a good guy down. So what I'm doing here is I'm filling in his shirt. Now you could do this prior to adding the straps on his shirt if you wanted to, just to make it easier. But for some reason, I refuse to take it easy on myself. I'm always going the hard way about doing things. So definitely do this part before adding the straps if you need to. But I really didn't have too much of an issue adding the stripes in there with the straps being on. Another one of Chucky's sayings is don't F with the good guys. So through this video, I just added some Chucky humor and some Chucky phrases from the movies. I hope you enjoy it. Just a little Chucky trivia as well. Here I'm using one of my edible markers, my fractal. This is a fractal marker to give Chucky his signature freckles. So take your time. Chucky is very small, so you want his freckles to be very, very small as well. Should you mess this up, unfortunately, you may have to start Chucky's face all over again. Sometimes, if you catch it while the paint is still wet, you can remove it with a little alcohol or some water sometimes. But don't be surprised if you can't. You'd have to start all over. I am using a white fractal to just give him some stitches on his head. That one was a little dry, so I actually ended up just using white paint. The Chucky movie actually debuted November 9th, so just a little bit of trivia here. I am making his little hand, the one that'll be holding the knife, because Chucky is a little devious in his approach to things. Oh, it's the other hand. Is it that hand? Which hand am I making? Okay, I'm making the hand that's not holding the knife. Make sure when you do the hand, you make a little space in his arm to receive the hand. You want it to sit inside of the shirt sleeve for it to look a little bit more realistic. And I just kind of focused on almost like his hand is closed because it was just easier with the amount of space that I had to work with. Also, the film spawned 6 sequels. Child's Play spawned 6 sequels, toys, a cartoon, as well as a TV show. So here I'm just taking my petal dust and I'm shading in those little creases and folds that I put in his clothes. This gives it a more 3D look, if you will. I love shading in. I call it razzle dazzle. So make sure you take a very, very small brush and just shade in all of those little creases and crevices we put in his pants earlier. It'll make it pop out and give it a really nice 3D effect. Did you know the first voice of Chucky was Brad? I think it's called, his last name is Dourif. So Brad Dourif was the first voice of Chucky. Now I'm going to go ahead and make his little weapon, which has to be very, very small because he has a very small hand. It's just a triangle, an elongated triangle cut out. Very simple. You don't have to do anything extravagant. And I did cut one in almost with like a little handle on it, just so that it'll fit under his hand and look more realistic. It's just the little details that make your fondant pieces stand out. So I'm going to work on his hand, the hand that will actually be holding the knife, unlike what I said previously, which was incorrect. Add a couple of little lines in the hand. Again, that hand is closed around the knife. So you only need to make 4, well, you're going to make 3 indentations to make the 4 fingers that'll be wrapped around the knife. And go ahead and secure that with a little water. Add any details back if you need to. And then you can add that to Chucky's body. Chucky's full name was Charles Lee Ray. Charles Lee Ray. I did add another piece of fondant to his hand, a wrist, because I needed that hand to stick out a little bit from under his shirt. So I did add just a little bit of fondant to his hand. You don't have to do that. I found that when I did do that, it made it look a little weird. So you can forego that if you need to, but I did add a little piece of fondant to act as a wrist around the hand that's holding his little weapon. We're almost done. Did you know the original name of the movie was Blood Buddy? The original Chucky movie was called Blood Buddy. I am rolling out a piece of white gum paste to sit the little plaque that Chucky is on onto another piece because I want to outline like his hand, his little weapon, and his hair. I want it to pop out as you see in Ghostface and Pennywise. I want it to kind of pop out, and putting it on that white background gives it a even a more 3D, 4D-ish effect. So feel free to do that with yours as well. Just make sure you cut around all of the little pieces that are sticking out from the purple background. I am using a clay cutter and an X-Acto knife to get into all of these little crevices with more precision. Did you know that Chucky's looks were based on the My Buddy doll, which hit stores in 1985? Do you remember My Buddy? I do. I was a junior in high school when My Buddy came out. I think I might have had a My Buddy. Anyway, I'm still going through cutting around all of the pieces that are sticking out of that purple background that I initially put him on. Because again, I want to give it that 3D effect by adding that white border. Feel free to use whatever colors you feel is necessary. I just thought the dark purple against the white would be great. Take your time with this process as well. Make it as neat as you possibly can. Chucky appeared on SNL in 1998. Did you all know that Chucky was on Saturday Night Live? He was. Here I'm just going to add a little bit of red fondant to the end of his weapon to make it look more realistic, even more realistic. The more detail you add, the better it is. Believe it or not, even a small little would seem to be insignificant detail really does elevate your fondant pieces. I love challenging myself to add little pieces to my toppers. Well, it appears that we've come to the end of this video. I truly hope that you've enjoyed it. I will have more videos similar to this coming really, really soon. If you enjoyed it, drop a comment, a heart or something, letting me know. And also give me ideas of what you'd like to see. Thank you so much. And don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and share. Friends till the end. Heidi, Heidi, ho.